Hey, good morning, everybody. Nikki Burnett here, Taste Life Nutrition Radio, streaming live on KUHSdenver.com, where today it's just me. We're going to talk about something that I think is important to a lot of us, but maybe fairly misunderstood. I know in my case it's pretty misunderstood. And so we're going to talk a little bit about recycling and the challenges of recycling. And, as far as I'm concerned, the health hazards of recycling potentially. And so we're going to jump into that. My goal is to just give information that I've found, right? It doesn't mean that everything is going to be absolutely correct. This is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but it is, I think it's an important discussion. Some of these data points I think are important data points. I have a ton of notes here. And so we're just going to go through them and have a little discussion, and maybe we'll open some eyes and maybe we won't. And if you have anything you want to add to the conversation, then feel free to do so. So of course we start the show as always with gratitude, because gratitude can change the world. I fully believe that. And woke up this morning being super grateful for just sleeping in my cozy bed. So, we had a beautiful, beautiful weekend, Memorial Day weekend in the mountains. And, it was so interesting. One of the days, so fascinating actually, one of the days was a day where we had sun and rain and snow and sleet and wind. I think we had basically everything. So we were in tank tops, we were in sweatshirts, we were under the tents. It was really really pretty cool. All of the different things that happened, at 10,000 feet within a few hours. So it was really an amazing time. Good friends, and just super remote, which is always our goal, is to be as remote as we possibly can. Dogs running around, just having a blast. And so it's always nice to come home and sleep in your bed, because it's much more comfortable than sleeping on the ground. But it's fine, right? I mean, it's what we do is we get away. And I take my shoes off, and I did my first cold plunge. That was really hard. It was so cold. I don't even know what the temperature of the river is or was, but it was really cold. But I did it, which means I didn't die, and I can do it again. So it's good stuff. So there was an article sent to me within the last couple of months, and I was reading it, and it was about recycling plastics. And the more I think about the way this show is going to go, probably that's mostly what we're going to talk about, because I think that plastic is the biggest issue. But essentially, the article was about, how do we reduce the amount of plastics that we use? What are the, cutting edge things that we can do where we're not having to use plastics? And so I started to dig in a little bit. I had questions. How is it that we have these recycling programs and they tell us we can recycle all these plastics, and the data shows that we're recycling 9% of the plastic? That makes no sense to me. Is it worthwhile? Is it worth the money? Is it worth the family money? And is it worth the expense of these government programs? I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I think it's important to have the conversation, right? And so I'm a recycler. I've been a recycler for, I don't know, as long as I can remember. My husband and I have had these discussions. Is it worth recycling? Is it not worth recycling? I don't know. In my thought process, and this is probably a lot of people's thought process, is what, I can still recycle, and we can still have, even if it's piled up somewhere, which hurts my heart, but if it's piled up somewhere, and then someday somebody is going to take it and use it. I don't know. Is that right? I have no idea. But the fact is that 9% of the plastic's getting recycled. What else, though, is happening when we're going through this recycling? Give me 1 second. Hey, Henry, I can hear myself, so I can't concentrate. Thank you. You know how you have that echo in the background if you're talking to somebody on Zoom or on their phone or whatever. Anyway, that's what I was hearing in the background. So it was totally distracting me. But anyway, so the what, in my digging around, I wanted to understand if 9% of plastic is recycled, what about the other stuff? What about paper? What about the metals? What about glass? And during the process, is it creating more of an issue, less of an issue? Is it an environmental hazard and a health hazard to do any of this recycling? So we will, and I think that in a lot of cases it can be. And so if I'm looking here, through, again, I've got a ton of notes here, so I'm going to do the best with what I have here. But, one of the things is that we have that there is contamination during recycling. And so, what happens when we throw our plastic, or we throw our food, our aluminum foil, or our cardboard boxes, pizza boxes that have all of the pizza and the stuff in them, right? They're contaminated. Are they getting recycled? Likely no, because of the contamination. And so I know that there was a time where they would talk about, you got to rinse all your stuff. And then I heard, well, no, you don't have to rinse it because all they're going to do is burn it. Well, burning is a topic we're going to get into. That burning is a huge issue, especially when it comes to burning plastic. Whole other thought. I'll get into that in a minute. But the thing is, we've got, these bags, we've got the non-recyclable plastics and all these things in the bins, and then these contaminants can spoil entire batches, right? So if you have, one pizza box in with a whole bunch of boxes, it can't be recycled, right? If you have plastic that's full of food or full of whatever contaminant, it can't be recycled, so nothing in that batch can be recycled, which is, well, then what are they doing with it, right? It's intended to be recycled. It's actually got the number on it which can be recycled, but then it can't be recycled. So what do we do with that? Well, is it just going into the landfill? Maybe, probably. Is it just going to be burned? Huge issue. And so, yeah, this creates a huge problem for recycling. So then we have these toxins that are created during the recycling process. So especially with things like the electronics that we have. Electronics are full of all kinds of metals. They're full of heavy metals, lead, other things that are in here somewhere that we can talk about. But then plastics. Plastics are also releasing toxins. We've got these volatile organic compounds that are also being released. And so what are they doing? They're in the air, we're breathing it in, ends up in our soil, which ends up in our food, or in our water, which can end up in our food and in our lawns and in our rivers and in our oceans, right? I mean, one of the things we talk about pretty regularly is fish. And we eat fish. We eat the cows that are eating the grass that are being fertilized, where these volatile organic compounds are falling into the grass, even if it's organic, right? It's not really organic then, is it? They're eating the grass that's being fertilized that has these toxins in them. This watered with the toxins in the water, right? So these are the things, they're eating them. It sits in their tissues just like it sits in our tissues. So we're eating it and we're getting more of it. So we're breathing it. It's getting in our skin. It's getting in our GI tract, which goes everywhere. So, it really kind of breaks it down to, is it worthwhile? And is it worthwhile spending more money on it? I don't know. Maybe not. I know we spend however much money we spend on I meant to look it up and I didn't, but on the extra stuff for recycling and the extra money that it takes to give away, is that money actually going to these recycling programs? I don't know. That's another whole topic probably. But anyway, these are so many of these things are carcinogens that are problematic. And getting back to the fish, sorry, I got sidetracked, but getting back to the fish are swimming around in these toxic pools that are no longer clean and clear like they're supposed to be. And so when I'm talking with people and clients and doing speaking or whatever it is, we're talking about eating smaller fish. So if we're eating smaller fish, I always say, think of SMASH, right? It's an acronym. So salmons, herring, anchovies, sardines, and herring. Salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. Sorry, too many H's in there. So anyway, they're smaller fish, so they don't hold on to the heavy metals. Well, this is a huge problem, and super sad in my opinion that we really shouldn't be eating tuna because it holds on to tons of heavy metals, which is toxic for us. Or shark, or all of these other huge, beautiful fish that are in the ocean that are holding on to these toxic materials, toxic metals that are creating a problem for us. One of the most healthy things that we can do is ingest fish oil. So yes, fish oil, through the processing, they're good fish oil, not all fish oil, but good fish oil. They have really stringent standards on filtration and making sure that it's free of metals and free of toxicities and that kind of thing. So that's important, and yes, we can get our fish oil that way. But if we are take it back to basics, like I try to teach, we should be eating fish to get our fish oil, and our fish are toxic, and they're struggling, they're suffering because of it also. So I find it to just be just kind of this harsh reality that we're in. And the understanding that plastics aren't going to go away, but how is it possible for us to reduce the impact of the amount of plastics, right? So we need, as far as I know, right, this is not my specialty, it's not my world, but think of our hospital systems. We've got to have our hospitals. We have to have people out there who know how to care of us in super acute situations. And so we have to have plastics for lots of these situations, and that's just one example, but we've got to have plastics in our hospitals, at least to date we do. So we're not getting rid of them, but what can we do to lessen it? And I think it does come down to what we're doing in our homes, right? We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. Are there really good answers? Maybe, and maybe there are great people out there who are producing great alternatives. One of my favorite things are the biodegradable plastic bags that you find at the grocery stores now. Beautiful. That's awesome. You get poop bags for dogs that are biodegradable. I mean, that's perfect, right? How can we continue that trajectory, right? How can we continue that? So let's see. Another thing that's in the, other toxins in recycled plastics. And so what we're finding is that the products made from the recycled plastics contain toxic chemicals, BPA, right? We've heard of BPA, huge problem. We can test for BPA. I can see in people's lab results the BPA in their systems. And it is a huge, huge burden on a system that can whether it's in and of itself, or if it's the multiple toxins that burden our bodies, and our bucket overflows with toxins, which means then we've got symptoms and we've got disease and we've got all of these issues that so many of us are dealing with today because we don't have the capacity to detoxify properly. Now, kind of like what we were talking about last week, if we support our bodies, one of the things that I do on a regular basis is I do binders. I'm doing binders every day, so I'm pulling out toxins every day that I'm taking in. So it's a matter of living in the world that we're in. Yes, we want to do better, right? But we have to live in the world that we're in. We can't fret about it. We can't freak out about it. We can't be sad about it. We can't, all of these things. We can talk about it and we can find answers within ourselves. And so what I think is a great answer and a great help for the body is to take binders. So you're pulling them out and you're decreasing your toxic load, you're decreasing your toxic bucket, right? So it's not overflowing and creating problems, and you're allowing the body to function better. Now, one thing I want to say real quick is, when I talk about binders, what we typically hear about are binders such as charcoal and clay and things like that. Those are great binders, but they are binders that they're non-selective binders, which means they're going to bind to food and nutrients and drugs and supplements. They're going to bind to everything. So those can be a great option when you have food poisoning, right? Or you've got some kind of chemical toxicity that is very acute and you need to have it pulled out. But there are other binders that are selective binders that are a much better option for taking on a regular basis, and still they're selective to those particular toxins, right? So we can take binders that are selective for heavy metals and environmental toxins. We can take binders that are selective for viruses, radiation, for other types of chemicals. We can take binders that are selective for microbial biotoxins. And these are binders that will go in, and they may have some crossover, but the way that they are made is, the chemistry around it, which again is way outside of my understanding. I can listen to it, but I don't know what he's talking about. But it's the chemistry of them. It's the way the ions attach and all of these things that pull out these toxins. So it doesn't burden us. There are also binders for mycotoxins. So if we have mold exposure, right? So anyway, these are the things that we can consider doing on a regular basis to help our bodies to manage all of these things. And so we've got the phthalates and the flame retardants. Man, the flame retardants are just like with all of this stuff, it really is becoming ubiquitous. Because we've got flame retardants, all over our homes. Think about the couches that you're bringing in your home, the rugs, the mattresses, your babies, your babies and your kids' clothes, and their mattresses. And this stuff off gases, right? Off gases and creates a huge problem in our environment. It's carcinogenic. I get sort of the background about why we would have fire retardants on our furniture, but is it really doing the best and highest good? I don't know. I don't want my house to just blow up in flames because we don't have fire retardants on our furniture, but I also don't want to breathe it in every day. So which is worse? I would say I would prefer not to have fire retardants on my furniture and on my clothing and all of that stuff, and around my kids. I don't have kids, but around my friends' kids. So I think that's my own personal opinion. You of course make your own decisions on these things, but we can find furniture, mattresses, those things that don't have fire retardants on them. So it takes a little searching, but they're out there. So look for those if you're in a place where you can do that. Let's see. So what happens though when we've got these recycled plastic is that the chemicals in the already recycled materials, the chemicals leach into the food and the beverages from the containers made of recycled plastic, of course, posing health risks. So all of these chemicals are then combined into multiple chemicals and they leach. And so one of the things that I want to make sure that I'm super clear about is that if you're using plastic, never, ever, ever heat plastic. Don't put it in the microwave. Don't heat plastic. On top of having all of these toxicants, they've got xenoestrogens, which are endocrine disruptors, right? We've talked about xenoestrogens a lot. Very briefly, though, xenoestrogens, they mimic our estrogen, our natural estrogen, and they bind super tightly to our estrogen receptor sites. This is for men, women, and kids, right? And it increases our estrogen. It increases our estrogen, but then our own innate estrogen doesn't have the ability to do its natural job. So we've got these crazy hormonal imbalances and hormonal swings. And this isn't good for kids. Certainly not good for kids. Not good for men. We've talked about how many times have we talked about the issue with male infertility. It's madness that over the last, I believe the number is the last 60 years, male fertility has decreased by 50%. This is not okay, right? So what is causing this, and how do we support the body, give it what it needs so it has the ability to deal with these things on its own, right? The body is so beautifully created. It knows what it's supposed to do, right? We've got this beautiful detoxification system that includes our skin and our kidneys and our liver and our gallbladder, all of these things that are our lymphatic system are intended to pull out toxins. So it has the ability, but we need to be able to support it, right? Through eating well, through avoiding when we can, all of these toxic chemicals, not heating the plastics in the microwave. Microwave's a whole other story. But I do believe though that even if you're using plastic and you're freezing in plastic, you're not heating in plastic, it still can leach. These chemicals can still leach. So, the less plastic we're using, the less plastic that's going to go in the landfill, because those types of plastic, your Ziploc bags and things like that, and I'm guilty of this. I try not to use them, but I do. They're just going to go into the landfill. They can't be recycled. So this is sort of a hard truth that we're told that all of this stuff can be recycled. Much of it cannot be recycled and is not being recycled, even if it can be. So, okay, another thing, kind of on the toxic train, right, is the persistent organic pollutants, the POPs, that are in the recycled materials. These are, we might also call them PUFAs, which is the forever chemicals. These are the things that are also creating a burden on our animals, on our food, on our bodies, and they don't go away. That's a problem when we have these chemicals that don't go away. These are the things that our environment can't detoxify it. Can we detoxify it? I don't know. I know I can test for it, and I've seen it. Seen these forever chemicals in people, right? It just continues that burden. Okay, so here's where I want to get into plastics a bit, because when I read that 9% of plastic is recycled, I just thought, how can that be? We have these massive programs with these numbers on all of the plastic that tells us what can be recycled, what can't be recycled. And what do? I do this, super guilty of it, is I think, well, it's plastic. It can be recycled. I'm going to throw it in and I'm going to recycle it. And if it can't be recycled, well, it'll be separated out and, sent along on its way. Not the case, right? So as we just learned, that if there is a batch of plastic that actually can be recycled, but it's got a bunch of plastic that can't be recycled in it, it can mess up the whole batch. It makes it difficult. It makes it time consuming. The costs go up. It just creates more and more and more of a problem. And so we have all these plastics that may or may not be able to be recycled. And so we have number one, that can be recycled, but it can be contaminated by food, residue, and labels. So if it's contaminated, is it getting recycled? Likely no. So then we have number two, and so these are milk jugs, detergent bottles, holy smokes. And so they are, let's see, where'd it go? Recycled, similar, they can be recycled, but often requires sorting by color. So we don't sort by color. Who out there is going to take the time to sort by color and do the program sort by color? I don't know. Or do they just go into the landfill because they've got to be sorted by color, right? The more labor it takes, the more expensive it is. And then, so we've got PVC, which is number three. They're pipes and food packaging and so forth, not recycled due to the complex composition and toxin release. So there's through the recycling process, if they did it, it would release toxins. So what's happening is it's going into the landfill or it's being incinerated, which is going to release the toxins into the environment anyway, right? So number 3. Number 4, recyclable but less commonly accepted due to lightweight and contamination issues. So these are grocery bags, food wraps, that kind of thing. So I try not to use grocery bags. Most of the time I don't. I do try to bring my own. That is a cool thing. We do have recycled grocery bags that we can purchase and use on a regular basis. So, you know, we do what we can do, but there's a problem with all of this. Let's see. So number 5 are yogurt containers, straws, etc. Increasingly accepted in recycling, but can be contaminated with food residues, which means they're not recycled. So we have number 6, found in disposable coffee cups and food boxes. So recyclable, but often not accepted curbside due to bulk contamination risks. Again, so not recycled. Here's another thing, talking about the coffee cups. So for a couple of things with this, again, it goes back to heating plastics and just watching out for your own health. I see this all the time. It makes me crazy. So I went to get coffee last week. I think we were on our way to go camping. And so grabbed coffee, put the plastic, I didn't, but they put the plastic top on it. I can only pray that the heat didn't hit the plastic, but the steam from the heat is going to hit the plastic and then going to drop down into the coffee, right? So anytime that happens, I either tell them to not put the plastic cap on or I take it off as quickly as I can, right? Typically, I just don't get coffee where this is going to be an issue, but at this point it was. Another thing that they did was they took the little green stick, the plastic green stick, so the coffee doesn't spill out of the hole in the little plastic top, and they stuck it in my coffee. So then you've got your plastic green sticks sitting in the coffee, right? Horrible. It's just horrible. So another thing to think about is your K-cups. I will beat this drum and I will continue to beat this drum as long as I can. But if you are like so many people in this world, I drink sometimes 1, sometimes 2, sometimes maybe 3 cups of coffee a day. If I'm using a Keurig with the K-cups that are all made of plastic or any other type of K-cup sort of situation, you are running hot water through this plastic every single day, multiple times a day, likely. This is a problem. It's a problem for your body, and it's something that I hope and I pray that we are spreading to our families. I hope that you take this and spread it to your families. There are other options. There are better options. It's not something that I do. I just refuse to get a Keurig. I actually got one for free and I gave it away. So it's just not, it's not worth it to me. Not worth the hassle. It's not worth the health issues. It will create health issues. And even if you don't know that that's where it's coming from, that's the problem with all of these things too. We end up with, whatever symptom, whatever disease, and we're like, well, this just came out of nowhere. Did it? I don't think so, right? So we're trying to figure out why we're coming up with all of these health issues and these problems, and what can we do about them. And then I have people coming to me, or we've got people going to the doctors and to the hospitals, when it really comes down to just a few things, right? It comes down to toxic exposures in our environment, in our food, in the heavy metals, which are toxic exposures, to microbes. So it's pretty simple. I mean, it's not simple, but there's just a few things that are really sort of that baseline problem causing the mitochondrial dysfunction, which then is causing the symptoms, the diseases, etc. So it's crazy stuff, man. So let's see. We have number 7. So includes various products not classified under other categories. Okay, so I don't really know what that means. But recycling processes vary and are often difficult, which means it's not recycled. So what do we have here? We have we have a few of these that tend to be recycled, but most of them have issues with being recycled, which means they're not being recycled, which equates to 9% of plastics being recycled. Yeah, and then just creating more toxicity and more problems. So the challenges that we come up with when we're talking about, plastic recycling, we talked about the contamination. We talked a little bit about the economic viability, right? So more labor and more issues and more contamination and more junk and all of these things creates it, it's difficult for it to be feasible to continue to recycle it. So, we've got these chemical additives. The chemical additives in the plastics, they complicate the recycling and pose health risks. The collection and the sorting, right? They're efficient. This says their efficient systems are essential, but costly and labor intensive, right? So these are expensive programs. And are they worth it? I don't know. So then we have the microplastics. We're hearing more and more about the microplastics, which are recycled plastics that degrade into microplastics, impacting ecosystems and health. So we went diving in Belize, I think it's right at a year ago. And, Belize, if you've been to Belize, beautiful. The water's beautiful. This is the most amazing color of blue you've ever seen. And so we get out in the water and I'm looking around me. All I see are microplastics. Well, they're not even micro. I mean, I could see them. So microplastics, you really can't see. But these are plastics coming at me in the ocean, through all of the waves and the things, right? So it was so disheartening and so disgusting, and where is it coming from? Well, you can't just say it's coming from Belize, the likelihood. I mean, it's the ocean. It's, moving around. It's got the currents. It's moving around. So it's from all over the place. What are we doing, and why do we feel like it's okay to dump all our trash in the ocean? I have no idea. It's beyond me. And it's, it's kind of that, if we don't see it, it's not there. Kind of like taking it and putting it somewhere and covering it with dirt, these toxic chemicals and things that end up leaching into the earth. We're going to cover up with dirt because if we don't see it, it's not there. So it really is heartbreaking what we're doing to ourselves. And that's really what it is. And that's what it comes down to. It's what we're doing to ourselves. It's such an issue. Now, let's see. I wanted to dig in a little bit more into the microplastics, because what we're seeing also is the microplastics showing up in our body, in our kids, in our bloodstream, in our organ systems. Okay? So these microplastics, we're drinking them, we're eating them. So these are things that can't be filtered out for the most part. I do believe, now I do have here that there are certain types of systems that can filter out. I'm pretty sure that distillation can filter out microplastics. This shows here, I don't know if this is factual, but I'm going to say it because, maybe it is. But this showing that reverse osmosis has the ability to filter it out. Maybe it does. I'm not really sure. And sorry, I'm not finding what I was looking for. There was another one, another filtration that showed that it might be able to filter out microplastics. So, but the microplastics are detected both in our drinking water, tap water, as well as in bottled water. I have a huge problem with bottled water anyway. Bottled water is a big problem, for one, because it's plastic. Now, what we're seeing that there's more water in paper. Okay, that's better, maybe. We're seeing it in aluminum. Now, aluminum can also leach. That can be a problem. But we're seeing bottled water coming out in different forms. I'm on the fence as if this is actually good or not. I don't really know. But again, it's not going to go away. Are these better options? I don't know. But we're seeing them, getting away from as much plastic as possible, I think, is a good thing. Paper is much more widely recycled, especially cardboard. We'll get into that. We're running low on time, which I knew we would, but I think that it's more thinking outside the box, right? And really coming down to what we can do as individuals and individual families to help decrease some of this stuff. And having the knowledge of what to do with the toxins that we're ingesting, and having the knowledge of what to do to replace the plastic, right? What can we do to replace the plastic that we use? So, the whole Tupperware plastic thing, there's none in my house. That was a big thing for me. Everything I use is ceramic or plastic. I'm super careful about that. I do still have, though, some plastic bags. I try not to use them, and I try to use them multiple times. They're not one-time uses for me at all. I even have some if I'm using, like for my dogs, so my dogs for their dog food, for, because I make their food, if I feed them raw. And for saving my bones, my bones for making broth, and my vegetables for making broth, I actually will put those in the freezer and store them in the freezer so I can reuse them, because I'm not going to use them for anything else, especially, the raw stuff. I'm not going to use it for anything else, but I can use it over and over again for the dogs, and it sits in the freezer, and so hopefully it's not growing bacteria, hopefully. So that's what I do. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's your thing, but I am trying to take as many steps as I can to eliminate using plastics. We have sausages that come to us in plastic, and my husband's like, is there a way that we can buy in bulk? We're not just constantly just unwrapping these 8 sausages in plastic, right? I don't know. If we, maybe we could go to our butcher and have them wrap it in paper. So we buy sausage in bulk and have them wrap it in paper. Maybe that's the better option. Still paper, and it's going to be contaminated with food, but it's using trees, but is it a better option than plastic? At least paper is biodegradable, at least, to agree, unless it's covered in wax or something. So anyway, let's move on real quick, because there are things that I'm understanding about paper, because that was a question that I had. Is paper actually recyclable? I don't know. What I am reading is that a large portion of cardboard is recyclable, which is great. So should we take the time to break down our boxes and put them into the recycle bin? Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that that's something that I'll continue doing. So there are other papers that can be challenging. So there's obviously contamination, there's downcycling, there's fluctuating market demand, on and on. But there are high recycling rates for paper, especially cardboard. But then there's like newspaper, not well recycled because of the heavy ink, and the ink is toxic. So that doesn't recycle well. Office paper, mixed paper, all of these things. Tissue paper, it's got, people stuff all over it. That stuff's not going to be recyclable. So take that into consideration. But for sure, our boxes and our cardboard seems like a smart thing to do. Metal recycling. So I think that this is kind of simple. Metal, we can have metal and we can sell it, right? So it seems like there's a need there. And so, you've got aluminum, steel, copper, brass, lead, all of these things. But the problem can be that there's contamination. We get paint on metal. We get all these other toxins on metals, and it's got to come off. So you've got to have somebody there that's going to sort it. So that's going to increase the cost. So, but seems to be, at least according to this, there are high recycling rates. Again, makes sense to me, because people will actually buy metals, used scrap metal. Okay, so do you recycle it or do you sell it? I would sell it, or give it to somebody to sell. I don't know. Something that's going to be used. Glass was an interesting one. That's one that I hear a lot, that it is more efficient just to make the glass than to recycle the glass. What I found was a little bit different of a story. Showed that glass is very recyclable, and that the energy it takes is less than making new glass. So I don't really know which side of the fence I'm on there. I tend to want to recycle glass. I'm like, can it be recycled? I know people use it. They're making fiberglass out of it. I believe they're making other things out of it. But if it's, again, goes back to contamination. If it's contaminated, it's going to go into the landfill. See, it's got to be sorted. There are transportation costs, right? Because glass is heavy. It's big. It's just bulky. So does it make a lot of sense? Seems like it's more expensive. Let's see. So I don't know about that one. I know my husband says it doesn't make any sense to recycle glass. Maybe that's the case. I'm not really sure. So I'm getting two sides of a story here. So I don't really know. He's pretty well versed on this stuff. So paper, metal, glass. Okay, so here's one that I think is worth talking about too, because I think most of us know that in our computers and in our phones, in solar panels, in the stupid wind turbines that we are using now that are gunking up our environment, they're all, what do we do with these things when we recycle them? So our computers and our cell phones, these are full of lots of toxic chemicals and metals and junk, and it can become super toxic. And so they have hazardous materials in them. And so recycling of them involves handling the toxic substances. I don't know what to do about that either. If I recycle my electronics, I'm taking it to Best Buy or taking it somewhere because I'm hoping that they're going to be responsible and do something responsible with it. My hope is that they're broken down and used but I have no idea. I don't know what to do with that. And I have, I'm certainly not going to throw it in the trash. I think that doesn't make any sense either. But, what do you do with these complex processes that it takes to recycle, which are we recycling these, the electronics? And it does show that the recycling rates are really low. So, yeah, kind of sad. Let's see. Moving on to, I think that's essentially it. So I wanted to, at least as far as some of the data points go, I hope that this is helpful. It's not to, my goal with this is not to certainly not to judge. I'm not perfect. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying. I think that we're all trying to a degree. But it's, if there's something that I said that maybe you questioned or makes you want to question more, then good, go dig, but know where your sources are coming from. I think that's a key as well. And as I was doing my research, I tried to be really careful about my sources and not take information that was, too far in one direction or from, organizations that have funding that are maybe sketchy, that kind of thing. But it's not an easy thing to research, and especially since it's not my world and it's not a lot of people's world. But my hope is the key takeaway is that we got to do better with plastic. And it comes down to just us, right? Me doing better in my own home with plastic and reusing, eliminating, when we don't buy it, the need for it goes down. So it's not going away. Petroleum products are not going away. But, if we can decrease the need for it, then that would probably be a good thing. And coming up with the other, like I said a little while ago, the plastic bags that are compostable. I love that. I love the egg cartons that are the paper and probably recycled paper. I hate it when my eggs come to me in these plastic containers because what am I going to do with them? I'm going to throw them away because I can't do anything with them. And are they recyclable? No, not as far as I know. So that's something that it's these little tiny little things. I make my almond milk, or it's not almond milk. It's actually pecan and walnut milk, and I make my own. And I put it in glass jars. So I no longer am buying almond milk that's either in paper or in plastic. I'm making my own. And it's super simple. A whole other topic. But it's these little things that I'm hoping for my family and for my sake that I am making a little tiny dent. And if we're all making little tiny dents, then, we make a big dent. is what I think is important. So I hope that I have it in here. I don't know that I do, but it gave percentages of the amounts of all of these different types of products, the metals, the paper, the plastic, the glass that are actually in the landfills. Obviously the plastic was the highest. It was I don't know if it was 20% of the landfill is plastic. And then to a lesser degree, the landfill is full of glass and metal and paper. And so what is it? I don't know how we deal with it, but, again, just bringing it back to your own house, right? Your own household. And if you have other research, if there's stuff that you want to send me, I'm happy to read it, because there's a lot here, and I think that there's a lot that we can do, but there's just so much to understand. It's all super complicated, and so anyway, that's what I got, and I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you can take this and just think about making a few changes in your home environment, in your work environment. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start being more aware about what I'm doing about the plastic that I'm sticking in the recycled container, because even if I'm sticking plastic in the regular trash can, I'm sticking plastic there that can't be recycled, and it's not contaminating the plastic that can be recycled. So that awareness, I think, is again another small little tiny step, being aware. So, all right. So as always, we're here 10 a.m. Mountain Time, streaming live on kuhsdenver.com. The stream, you'll find us here next week, 10 a.m. And every other Thursday, you'll find us usually with guests. We've got some pretty amazing guests we have on, and I'm excited to continue to move forward. You can find me, as always, tastelifenutrition.com. You can find me on all of the socials at Taste Life Nutrition. I'm always happy to chat with you, whether it's about health stuff, whether you have ideas or thoughts or topics that you want talked about here on the show. We love thinking outside the box. I love bringing in guests, thoughts, ideas that are a little outside of the conventional, that are there to do the most good, right? A little while ago, I was like, it's what is the highest and best good? And that's my goal in basically everything that I do. And what I'm trying to always, reach for, right? What is that best and highest good? So, you can go to the website if you do want to talk about health stuff. Happy to do that. My goal is to always be a resource. Go to the website and fill out an assessment that will give some information, that will give me some information, some context around what it is that you're dealing with, how it is that I might be able to help, or who I might be able to refer you to. So happy to do that as well. I have a pretty amazing network of practitioners who are awesome at what they do. And so happy to chat about that. Also, remember, we have Soulful Conception. Soulful Conception, all of these things that we're talking about here, this is the stuff that impacts our future, right? The toxins in our environment, the forever chemicals, the what we can do to support our bodies to create, to eliminate all of these chemicals and these toxins. Because when we're trying to create a little person, we need the least toxic burden that we can, because our epigenome will impact hundreds of years ahead of us, literally. I say this all the time, but I think it's so important to stress that our health today, our toxic bucket is passed on. Our trauma toxic bucket is passed on. And so eliminating these toxins, dealing with the toxins, supporting the body, getting it as healthy as you possibly can before creating that little person. I don't have the stats on this, but there are stats that there are these hundreds and hundreds of chemicals that are inside umbilical cord blood, right? Which means if that's where it is, it's in me, or it's in mom, and it's in baby. And this is, being born with a toxic bucket that's already starting to overload. It's just not fair. And we have the ability to do a lot about that. And I do think that it's, standing up to these chemicals that have never been tested is really, really important. Don't allow the chemicals to be poured in your yard. Don't put Roundup in your yard. Don't put atrazine in your yard. Don't use these terrible chemicals. You've got your kids running through your yards. You've got the neighbors running through your yards. You've got your dogs running through your yards. These are massively problematic. I have a client I was talking to who recently had a heart attack, and he was telling me about the chemicals that he was putting in his yard all the time. It's like, okay, there are lots of factors that go into heart attacks, but that's going to be inflammatory. It can't be detoxified. It's difficult to be detoxified. Is this part of the puzzle in that created this situation for him? Probably, right? So if we can start to eliminate those things and support the body, then hopefully we don't have these acute situations. So anyway, thanks for joining me. Thanks for letting me kind of, move through this. I know it's a little bit different than usual, but I think it's worth the discussion and worth, having some of these eye-opening moments, especially. It was eye-opening for me for sure, especially with the plastics. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week here, again, streaming live on KUHSdenver.com, 10 a.m. Mountain Time on Thursday. See ya.